In this episode, I'm going to go over a strategy that you can use to better manage your emotions during games. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. This morning I was reading through a book. It's one of my favorite books called Breakfast with Seneca, and it talks a lot about Stoic philosophy. And one of the key ideas in there that it's talking about right now in the chapter that I am rereading is this idea of how many of our emotions and especially our frustrations that we feel are the cause of not the situation, so not what happens, but our beliefs about the situation. And this is something that I talk to a lot of athletes about, specifically athletes who are currently struggling with managing their emotions and getting too upset when they play. And so that's what I really want to go over within this episode. So let's say that you have a situation within your game. Let's just say that you are a baseball player as an example. And let's imagine that you strike out. Now that strikeout, right? I know I was a baseball player myself, is extremely frustrating. It does have an effect on your batting average. It has an effect on your team because if you guys had runners on second and third, 2 outs, and you strike out, right? There you go. You guys just lost an opportunity. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get so upset about it and feel so down on yourself to where then you carry that into the field with you. So now the chances of you making a play in the field go down because you're too upset. And it also doesn't mean you need to carry it into your next at bat to where you're going up to the plate with more tension, more fear, more worries, because you're now trying to make up for that previous at bat. And then that has a negative impact on your next at bat. The strikeout itself, while it is frustrating, is always going to be followed by a certain mental reaction. Now, a lot of times, this mental reaction is not something that's happening too consciously, right? It's probably happening subconsciously. It's just some automatic thoughts that pop into your head, and you may not even be aware of them. But there will be a belief that you have about striking out, and then there are thoughts you have in that moment that are the real reason why you then carry that strikeout with you going into the next at bat, going into the field, and you just get so frustrated over what happened. And the same is going to be true for many different players, many different sports. And the reason I'm using the baseball example is because just this morning, actually, I was talking to a baseball player and we were going over this very same idea. And when I asked him what the belief was that he has after he strikes out, he told me that the belief he has is, I could have done better. And the more he thinks about how he could have done better, the more frustrated he gets at the fact that he didn't do better. And then he just keeps dwelling on the at-bat and dwelling on the at-bat and dwelling on it and getting more and more upset. What we want to do, right, and the real strategy here for managing our emotions better, managing these situations better, is that we want to have a different mental reaction. So I asked him, what would be a different belief that you would want to have in that moment that would help you move past that frustration better so you wouldn't carry that strikeout with you, for the rest of the game? And he said, instead of thinking I could have done better, I want to think, how can I improve? I said, that's a fantastic way of looking at it. And so you see how different that way of looking at the situation is. Instead of thinking I could have done better after the strikeout, he should think, how could I do better? How can I improve? The situation is the same exact situation, right? And this goes back to that whole idea that I mentioned I read in the book this morning. It's the same idea of, the situation is the same, but the belief we have about the situation changes. And because we're able to change the belief we have about the situation, we're actually able to change our emotional reaction, our mood, how angry we actually get or how upset we actually get. And there are many different examples of this within sports. Let's say another one is a bad call by the official, right? And you could have one belief where you think the official's out to get us, this sucks, we're going to lose. Or you could have the different belief of they're human, they make mistakes, it's no big deal, I'm just going to focus on what I can control. But when we are able to really change the beliefs we have about situations, we are able to control our emotional reaction to situations. Now, the baseball player this morning and I were talking about how we can make this a very actionable process and practice for ourselves. Because, like I said, those negative thoughts that we have or the beliefs we have in these moments that are making us upset, they are automatic thoughts, right? They're these subconscious, deeply ingrained beliefs that we have. And so it's not likely that just, you listening or watching this episode or, trying to think, I want to change my beliefs after a bad situation. That's not going to all of a sudden make it change. That's going to give you the fuel to try to make the change, but then we have to actively work in the moment to change how we are mentally responding to these different situations. And so he and I were talking about the difference between automatic thoughts and conscious thoughts. And this is something that I talk a lot about within my episodes, the podcast episodes, but also something I talk a lot about within one-on-one coaching, and then also the Confident Competitor Academy, which is the online program I have available. Which, by the way, if you are interested in learning more about the Confident Competitor Academy or one-on-one coaching, I've put links to both of those in the description below. But the difference between automatic thoughts and conscious thoughts is that automatic thoughts are the ones that just pop into our head. So for the baseball player, it was a thought of, I could have done better. Conscious thoughts are the thoughts we then choose to have in the moment, so we're consciously trying to have these thoughts. And a really great way to look at this is that when we're trying to manage these frustrations we feel, so we're trying to change the beliefs we have about a situation, the conscious thoughts will be the thoughts we have in response to the automatic thoughts or the automatic belief that we have. This is where we are working to reframe that belief. And so the baseball player and I were talking about how this weekend during his tournament, he really needs to pay attention to any situation when he's getting upset, and he needs to try to change his self-talk in that moment. So for yourself, if you're trying to work on managing your frustrations better, managing your emotions better when you play, we want to first recognize that it's not the situation, it's not what's happening that's actually causing you to feel the way you feel. It's your mental reaction. It's your belief about the situation or about what happened. What we want to try to change is the belief that you have. Now, this is a long-term process where we're continuing to try to change the way we see things and make some mindset shifts. But in the moment, so right now for yourself, you really want to work on altering your self-talk and reframing how you respond to these situations mentally. When there's a bad call, try to change the way you're talking to yourself about it, change the way you're thinking about the bad call. If there's a mistake that you make, or your teammates make a mistake, or the other team is getting an early game lead, change how you're responding to that. Change how you're thinking. Because it's the belief about the situation, not the situation itself, that's making you feel the way you feel. So if we want to get more control over our emotions and control ourselves better as players, we need to make sure that we are working to change our beliefs. And that starts with working to change the way we're talking to ourselves and the way we're thinking in these moments. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training. And if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, the Confident Competitor Academy, or any of the programs I have available, I've put links to those in the description below.